This is Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. Now, live from the Matt Black Kia Studios.
Oh, what an attack! Whoa, what a move!
Here's Josh Hennig.
Welcome back into Game Night on a Friday, a football Friday on 97.3 ESPN. It's a busy football weekend, college football Saturday, high school football tonight, NFL on Sunday and Monday and Tuesday. Oh my goodness, what are we going to do with all this football? We're all going to love it. We're all going to overeat it like Thanksgiving dinner. High school football, of course, tonight coming up. Mike Gill, Steve Parker on the call. St. Joseph versus Pleasantville tonight at 7. Tomorrow we have the Red River rivalry, Texas versus Oklahoma, and then tomorrow night you have Miami versus Clemson. We'll be talking more about college football coming up at 6:20 tonight with Adam Rittenberg, ESPN national college football reporter and writer. Some interesting insights from him about how Texas is where they are right now. Texas, they lost to TCU. They almost lost to Texas Tech. What's going on? Remember last year we kept being told Texas is back and this team is back. Nobody's back. Let me just break it to you, okay? Speaking of breaking it to you, we were talking about that Thursday football game last night. I do recall telling all of you that this was not going to be high scoring like the Super Bowl between Brady and Foles. And to the chagrin of the Nick Foles cult of the Philadelphia fan base, Nick Foles did not play amazing last night. In fact, as usual, Nick Foles continues to have a losing record and interceptions outside of Philadelphia. He's 6-12 outside of the Eagles uniform. Keeps throwing interceptions because, that's what he does. That's who he is. To the chagrin of the Nick Foles cult following, he did not outclass Brady. You know why the Bears won last night? The Bears won last night because their defense played outstanding last night. Whether you were listening to the game here on 97.3 ESPN or you watched the game on television, here's what you saw in that game last night from the Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears defense had 6 tackles for loss, 8 quarterback hits, 2 forced fumbles, and they limited Brady on third down. The Bucs last night were only 4 for 14 on third down conversions. You want to know why the Bears won last night? It's because of defense. And realistically, I understand there are those of you out there who are, pounding the steering wheel or shaking your fist at the radio because I'm defiling the name of Nick Foles, your God and leader, to the promised land in 2017. But let's be realistic. Teams win championships, not individual players in football. It's only 2 sports where one guy can make an incredible difference. And they're the 2 sports that have the least number of players on the floor or the ice. Unless you got LeBron James on your team or you have the hottest goaltender in the NHL, that's when one player has that much of a difference. Otherwise, very rarely does an individual player have a great impact on a team sport. And that's why the Eagles are going to make this game very interesting on Sunday. If you haven't seen it, the Eagles injury report is up right now on 973ESPN.com. And over at 973ESPN.com, you will see that the Eagles are without 2 wide receivers and a cornerback for Week 5. Now, that's the bad news. The good news is, you know who's back for the Eagles? You know who was practicing? Lane Johnson. Come to find out, Lane Johnson had a cyst on his ankle that he needed to get drained this week. That's what was bothering him on Sunday. Makes sense. Not the craziest thing I've ever heard, that's for sure. Looks like he's good to go. And that's where the importance lies. The importance with the Philadelphia Eagles or any football team always has and always will start in the trenches. What you can accomplish in the trenches, what you can do along the lines of scrimmage. Can you impose your will? Can you force the opponent to do what you want? Can you drive them out of their comfort zone, away from their rhythm of play? The Philadelphia Eagles defense for 2 weeks now has been hitting quarterbacks. 18 hits on the Bengals quarterback, Joe Burrows, and then 15 hits on the 49ers' two quarterbacks, C.J. Beathard and Nick Mullins. The Eagles can make this a very, very interesting game. They can make this a game where you can really push the limit. And I'll give you my official pick for the Eagles a little bit later in the show. But I'm telling you right now, the Eagles can make this a very interesting game for two specific reasons. Number one, it does start with their defense. The Steelers have had a lot of rest. They've had a lot of time off, but it was unplanned time off. Are we sure the Steelers are going to come out firing 100% the very first plays of the game? I don't know. There are times that teams, when they have a bye week, they come out a little sluggish. They come out a little slow. It's not like the Steelers are infamous for being fast starters on offense. It's not like they have that reputation. So the Eagles, if they can get their rhythm going and they can slow down the Steelers for a while, they can make this a close game. The second thing I want you to watch out for in this game is how does the Eagles' offensive line stand up? You heard it earlier today on 97.3 ESPN. You heard it multiple times throughout the show. Sal Palantonio on the Sports Bash. Jeff Mosher, Football at 4. The Steelers bring a lot of pressure on defense. They lead the NFL in percentage of blitzes. They blitz more than any other team in the NFL. Now, there's a reason for that, all right? It's not just because they're a great defense and they're... No. Relax. Relax the Buddy Ryan fans out there, okay? It's not because they don't have great defense, because they blitz. They blitz a lot because they have the personnel to do it. That's right. They have the personnel to actually do it. This is a point that's been brought up. I've heard from Mike Gill and a couple others in the past. One of the reasons why the Eagles don't blitz a lot is because they don't always have the personnel to actually do it efficiently. The Steelers have blitzing personnel. Think about who they have at linebacker. That guy like Bud Dupree and TJ Watt, they're really good. Really good. When you have a linebacker like Devin Bush out there, when you have linebackers such as Vince Williams as the depth guy, you have versatility. You have guys who can do different things. And then in the secondary, who do you have? Arguably, if he's not the best safety, he's one of the best safeties in the NFL, Minkah Fitzpatrick. And you also have Terrell Edmonds out there. And you have cornerbacks like Joe Hayden, who's having another good year. So when you have the personnel at the second and third levels of the defense, it allows you to blitz. Can the Eagles' offensive line hold up to the blitz? This is going to be the biggest test of Jordan Mailata's career. Yeah, he got his feet wet last week. Now he's got some real freaks coming at him this week. And by the way, Nate Herbig, Matt Pryor, good luck. You know who's on that D-line for the Steelers? Chris Wormley, Stephon Tuitt, Cameron Hayward. Some really good players. So to me, this game is going to come down to the trenches. It's the Eagles' offensive line versus the Steelers' defensive line. It's the Eagles' defensive line versus the Steelers' offense. That's where this game is going to come down to the wire. Again, Eagles football this Sunday. Coverage begins with Billy Schweim in the locker room at 10 a.m. live from the Ocean City Boardwalk. Broadcasting live starting at 10 a.m. Then Mel Reese and Mike Quick on the call starting at 1 right here on your home for Eagles football on 97.3 ESPN. PlaySugarHouse.com text board is open, 609-403-0973. That's 609-403-0973 for the PlaySugarHouse.com text board. Place your legal sports bets at PlaySugarHouse.com. Sign up now and match your first deposit up to $250. Must be 21 or older to play. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. That's 609-403-0973 for the PlaySugarHouse.com GameNight.com text board. Speaking of gambling and some picks, a little bit later in the show, we also give you my college football picks. We went 6-2 last week. Overall on the year, let me make sure I get the number right here. It's 22-13. We're 22-13 on the year. Not too bad for yours truly. So we'll see how we do again this weekend. A huge college football weekend. As I mentioned, we have two huge showdowns tomorrow on 97.3 ESPN. Texas versus Oklahoma at noon. Miami versus Clemson at 7:30. You hear all the action right here on 97.3 ESPN. And the interesting thing about this football weekend that we're embarking upon does get back to how things are being shuffled and spread out. And this is the real big rub when it comes to football in this world of COVID-19. Today, you find out that the Titans had no more negatives. So they are going to go into this game. And they're going to have an opportunity to play. But it's going to be on Tuesday. According to Adam Schefter, it looks like the Cardinals and Jets game is still on for Sunday. The Cardinals team playing, they are still playing it apart for the East Coast tonight. So it looks like the Jets are in the clear as of right now when it comes to their COVID situation. We know the Patriots are going to be reportedly back in the facility tomorrow morning to prepare for their game on Monday night, which will be on at 5 p.m. on your television. A 5 p.m. Monday Night Football game. That's always a head scratcher. We know Belichick had some gripes about, how the timing of everything threw off his game planning for the game, whether that's an excuse or a reality, we'll never know with Bill Belichick. But what we do know with Bill Belichick is that he's already seen this script before. He's already been through this ride before. He's already walked down this road before. So he knows exactly what to expect this time around. He's not going to get surprised again. He's not going to be tricked. He's not going to be manipulated. He's going to be just fine. And when you look at the Patriots playing on Monday night, Titans playing on Tuesday because of their COVID-19 situations, you look at the Jets and the Cardinals game, listen, we knew this is what we were walking into. And then one of the best stories of the football season this week was last night. For those who may have not been watching because either the Yankees were on television getting their win to play Game 5 tonight, or you were watching Nick Foles barely eke out a win on Thursday Night Football, or if you were watching anything else last night, you might have missed Houston. That's right. The University of Houston played their first game of the entire year last night. That's right. Houston got stuck waiting until October 9th to play because of COVID. And they won the game. And I was so happy for them because it was like redemption. It was like this team had practiced for so many weeks. They tried to have so many starts their season. And they finally got to the point where they could have a season. They could actually play a game. And I was so thrilled. It was a great game, too. It was a lot of fun to watch. And I think that's really where my heart is. With everything negative going on in the world, every time you turn on social media, everyone is screaming and yelling at each other over something, whether it's politics, whether it's other stuff, COVID-19 and arguing about sports. Everything, it feels like it's been ratcheted up to an extra level of intensity. I'm here to celebrate the good things. I'm here to celebrate the blessings. I'm here to celebrate what we do have. You know what we do have? We got football. We get to watch football each and every week. We got baseball tonight. Yankees Rays. You can hear the action in progress following high school football today on 97.3 ESPN. After the St. Joe Pleasantville game, you can hear Yankees versus Rays tonight. You could hear Garrett Cole. Is he able to, how long does he last? He's pitching on a short notice. Is that going to affect him much in this game? We're going to find out. I'm grateful. I'm thankful for what we have. That was one of my biggest takeaways from last night. I'm thankful for what we have because, as Scott Van Pelt said on SportsCenter, months ago we would have taken the worst NFL game on the schedule and watched it and consumed it and probably even paid for it, right? Because that's how desperate we were for sports. That's how much we missed sports. That's how many months we went out talking and being able to analyze actual game action. So every time we have a game, every time we have a moment, every time we have something, be happy. My little recommendation for you on a Football Friday here on 97.3 ESPN. Coming up about 6 minutes from now, ESPN National College Football reporter Adam Rittenberg will join us here on GameNight on 97.3 ESPN. We'll check out the PlaySugarHouse.com text board right now at 609-403-0973. Dan from EHT chimes in, says Carson Wentz is going to shatter records against the Steelers. Over, under on turnovers. The Steelers are going to see Hurts by the fourth quarter. Never mind. Forget Wentz is great in garbage time. Not. He can't do that either. That's Dan and EHT. Well, first of all, Dan and EHT, you sound like an irrational hater when you talk it like that. You act like Wentz is the worst quarterback in the world. And when you say stuff like that, you just sound ridiculous. You make it like the Steelers are the steel curtain defense, and they're not. They're a very good defense. They got very good personnel. I'm not going to get it away. You heard me name all the names earlier. But you make it like Carson Wentz is, I don't know, Jeff Driscoll? He's not Jeff Driscoll. If your perception of Carson Wentz is that he is such a horrible quarterback and that he can't do anything, then you and I are not watching the same football games, Dan and EHT. If you've heard me in weeks, I've been critical of Wentz. The first couple games, I ripped him left and right. But part of the reason why I rip him, the part of the reason why I'm so critical of him, the part of the reason why I'm so hard on him is because I know he can be better and do better. Remember when the Eagles played the Jets last year and it was just an embarrassing game? It's not that. That's not Carson Wentz, okay? There are so many players in the NFL who are way worse than Carson Wentz. When you saw the Eagles beat the Jets last year, 31-9, if you may or may not recall, the Jets quarterback was a young man named Luke Falk, and his backup was named David Fales. Carson Wentz is 100 times better than both of those players. Now, if you believe the Steelers are the greatest defense of all time, then please tell me how a team whose 3-0 record against teams that have a combined number of wins of 1 this year is one of the greatest defenses of all time. Until the 2000 Baltimore Ravens or the 1985 Chicago Bears or the late 90s 49ers come walking through that door, or the Legion of Boom Seahawks come walking through the locker room onto the field, Carson Wentz is not shattering any Eagles interception records in a game. He's not going to be the worst quarterback ever. No, stop it. You sound ridiculous. 609-403-0973 is the text board. One more text I want to get in here before the break. Brian from Absecon got your text in here right under the wire here. He says, Glass now for the Rays is starting on only 2 days rest as well. Yeah, Garrett Cole is starting on 3 days rest, Glass now on 2 days. Now, it's a little different, though, because if you look at Glass now, you realize that he's not a... Okay, I'm going to say this, and it's going to come off as really extreme. He's not a bona fide starter. He's one of these guys who pitches a handful of innings in his start, and then they go to the bullpen. It's pretty much his style of pitching. So Garrett Cole's a guy who can go 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 innings. Glass now is a guy who typically only goes about 5 innings in a start. He's a guy that when you break down his pitch count, he's not throwing the volume of pitches that a guy like Garrett Cole is game in and game out. So, every once in a while he'll go deeper into a game if he's pitching really well. But typically Glasnow is a guy, he goes about 5 innings, and that's kind of where he caps out. Because if you let him go too much longer, teams usually get to him after a while because then his pitch count starts going up. He starts getting a little erratic in the strike zone. So I think Glasnow starting on 2 days rest is a little different because the Rays are used to going to their bullpen early. So they can tell Glasnow, just give me, it's like, remember Jordan Montgomery last night for the Yankees? They basically told Montgomery, give me 4 or 5 good innings and I'll get to the bullpen, right? I think the Rays have the same mentality. The Rays are looking at Glasnow and said, we don't need you to go blow for blow with Garrett Cole. We just need you to give you everything you can for a handful of innings. Because we got dudes in the bullpen like Diego Castillo. We got dudes in the bullpen like Pete Fairbanks. We got guys who can throw. Remember, was Kevin Cash's line? I got a bunch of guys who could throw 98, right? They got pitchers in that bullpen. John Curtis, they got in the bullpen. They got dudes who can come in there and fill in until they can get to the back end of the game. Tonight with the Yankees and the Rays, it's Garrett Cole or nothing. It's not nothing against the Yankees bullpen, but the Yankees hitters have been very erratic in this series. You have not gotten the Bronx Bombers for the majority of this series. So when you're watching that game tonight while you're listening to high school football here on 97.3 ESPN, just be careful. Watch Garrett Cole. Watch the Yankee hitters. If Garrett Cole can't get them deep into this game, I don't have a lot of faith the Yankees are going to win this game. Keep text coming, 609-403-0973 on the PlaySugarHouse.com text board. Coming up next, Adam Rittenberg, ESPN National College Football Reporter, joins us here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City.
You're listening to Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Game Night here on 97.3 ESPN. Josh Hennig hanging out with you at a big college football Saturday. Of course, you can hear Texas versus Oklahoma tomorrow here on 97.3 ESPN. And joining me right now on the Boardwalk kind of hotline to talk more about it. He just wrote about Texas and their pretty much very frustrating situation they are in for a Texas fan or just a college football fan. Adam Rittenberg, ESPN writer for college football and reporter, joins us right now on the Boardwalk kind of hotline. Adam, how you doing this Friday?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
I appreciate you jumping on. And, we're airing this game tomorrow, and I'm thinking about how, maybe like 10, 12, 15 years ago, this game had so much juice. And not that it doesn't have any juice anymore, but it feels like how the mighty have fallen with Texas and Oklahoma, both of them getting a little shell-shocked in the last couple of weeks.
Right. Yeah. Usually you have at least one of these teams positioned for something, a Big 12 title run, possibly college football playoff. Obviously, Oklahoma has been that team in recent years, but they're sitting here and both are fortunate. Oklahoma is 0-2, but Texas is fortunate not to be 0-2 in the Big 12. And they've obviously both had opportunities to win their games and be 2-0, but it is an unusual feeling. And both teams have issues, whether it's Texas on defense, not really adapting very well so far to their new coordinator, Chris Ash. Oklahoma offensively just isn't as smooth. They don't run the ball at the same rate as you're accustomed to seeing a Lincoln Riley team run the ball. And on defense, they've had some issues with big plays. So something's got to give. It's a little bit of a hard game to size up because both teams are going to be desperate. Oklahoma has a younger quarterback in Spencer Rattler, Sam Ellinger. This will be presumably his last game in the Red River Series. So it's certainly a big one because the loser is going to be in real trouble in the Big 12.
What is going on with Texas in these last few years? And is it the recruiting? Is it that Charlie Strong and Tom Herman are just not the right men for the job? What do you think is at the core of these issues? Because I feel like every year they have some talent. I mean, Sam Ellinger is an experienced quarterback, but it seems like they just can't put it all together.
Right. Yeah. It's hard to say it's recruiting. I mean, it's an area that Charlie Strong had some success in, and Tom Herman's had a lot of success. I mean, they had a a top 5 class at ESPN 2 years ago, top 10 ESPN class last year. But it hasn't translated. And so then you wonder if it's more cultural. Are there issues just with that program that need to be addressed from a more macro standpoint? One thing that Tom Herman's teams at Houston and just earlier in his career, his teams always played with an edge. They were a team that was hard nosed and they just weren't a team that was going to give in. And you just look at the way they play defensively, and I just don't sense that. And coaches I talk to don't sense that they're playing as hard as they need to. And obviously they're not playing to their talent level. You look at their front seven, and there's really only one player who stands out, and that's Joseph Osai, who finished last year with an incredible performance in the Alamo Bowl, and then he's leading the team in tackles. He's the only defender on the team with a forced fumble through the first 3 games. And so I think offensively they're going to be okay. I like the hire of Mike Yurcich as their new coordinator. Sam Ellinger is really well respected. I think they have potential at running back and receiver. They got to catch the ball a little bit better. But I think just overall they're not playing, Clemson steps on the field and that they're accustomed to winning. Same with Alabama, same with Ohio State. And you don't feel that from Texas right now. And maybe it's just been the fact that there's a number of years where they have not been a national contender. And it's hard to create that when it isn't in place like it should be, even at a program with all the resources in the world like Texas does.
Adam Rittenberg joining us here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Check out his article over on ESPN.com on the plus side about what is wrong with Texas and Texas A&M. Focusing here, Texas versus Oklahoma tomorrow, right here, kickoff at 12 p.m. on 97.3 ESPN. Adam, another huge game tomorrow that we're going to have on 97.3 ESPN, Clemson versus Miami. This is going to be the ultimate. Is Miami real? Does Clemson have enough talent on defense? We know they have a lot of talented freshmen and younger players, but how do you evaluate this throwdown in the ACC?
Right. I think it'll be an interesting opportunity for Miami. It's obviously going to be hard for them as a basically 2-touchdown underdog to go into Death Valley and win. But how do they measure up, to the premier program in the conference and one of the best in the country? And Miami has individual players that can step on the field with Clemson and not look different and potentially not perform differently because they're that talented. But do they have a talented enough team? Are they ready to really push a team like Clemson? Because we know Trevor Lawrence is the best football player in the country, probably overall, just in terms of what he does at his position at quarterback. Travis Etienne, I think the best complete running back in the country. And so how is Miami going to defend that? They have some defensive linemen who are really good. They have some talent in the back end. And Manny Diaz is a really good defensive coach. And then on the flip side, can Miami's offense, which has looked a lot better this year with their new coordinator, Rhett Lashley, are they able to score the ball against Clemson? I think the biggest improvement Miami has had, other than quarterback with De'Aaron King, has been their offensive line, which was dreadful last year. They were the Power 5 team that allowed the most sacks. I think they were 3rd most allowed sacks in the country in all of all of the FBS, and they've been much, much better in terms of protecting a guy like De'Aaron King, who obviously has great athleticism and can get out of the pocket as well. So, all in all, Miami has some dudes on both sides of the ball. They have good coaches, but are they ready for this stage? And then how does Clemson look? They haven't really played anybody. Are they looking to make a statement in a game that everyone's going to be watching? That when you've won like they've won for so long, they become a little bit boring. They kind of slip off the radar in a league like the ACC. Well, as you mentioned, they're front and center, they're center stage this week, and that could be a motivator for Dabo Swinney's team.
You mentioned De'Aaron King. I mean, I'm pounding the table for this guy to be, if not the Heisman Trophy winner, at least a Heisman candidate. I mean, he's been incredible this year, and he hasn't even run that much. Yeah, Adam, he's basically been, for the most part, in the pocket doing work. Imagine what can happen when this guy gets in the open field, too.
Right, and that's what defensive coordinators in the ACC have told me they're really concerned about is what happens when he starts moving. But I know the ability to pass in the pocket was a big emphasis point for De'Aaron King because he wasn't great last year in limited action at Houston, and I think it's just as a guy who wants to develop and ideally become a pro prospect, you have to be able to be an efficient quarterback in the pocket. He's certainly been that. Hasn't turned the ball over. Your coaches tell me both of Miami's tight ends are NFL caliber players. They have some really good young running backs. And as I mentioned, the offensive line has been the revelation. That group has finally stepped up and performed closer to its talent level. So, we'll see how they do against Clemson. What I've been told is Clemson's their best defensive players, as you noted, are younger guys. Guys like Brian Bresee on the defensive line, true freshman. And so can he get after D'Eriq King, or can Miami continue this trend of protecting the quarterback and allowing King some time to make throws either in the pocket or on the move?
Of course, Clemson, Miami tomorrow night here on 97.3 ESPN. Coverage begins at 7:30. Joining us right now on Game Night is Adam Rittenberg. You can follow him on Twitter at ESPN Rittenberg for all your college football news, reporting, and analysis. Adam, one more before I let you go, and I appreciate the time today. One of my favorite storylines this year of the SEC has been the arrival of the two offensive wizards to the state of Mississippi, Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss and Mike Leach at Mississippi State. And I'm curious, now we got a couple games under our belt. We need to have a little bit better idea of what those teams, what those coaches are looking like at those schools. What are your impressions after the first two games for both offensive masterminds?
Sure. Well, you start with Leach, and in some ways this is very on brand with what we've seen from his team so far. You're going out and you're scoring a huge upset of the defending national champions LSU. You're putting up record numbers from a passing standpoint with KJ Costello, and then the next week struggling mightily against an Arkansas team that hadn't won an SEC game in 2.5 years at home and losing that game. So we might see this a little bit throughout the year. I think it'll be really interesting to see how Mike Leach adjusts to how teams are going to defend his offense in the SEC going forward. I mean, nobody's going to take the approach that LSU took, but I think everybody's going to try to take the approach that Barry Odom took last week with Arkansas in effectively slowing down KJ Costello and that Mississippi State offense. Mark Stoops is going to attempt to do that. But just getting to Lane Kiffin, Mark Stoops in Kentucky couldn't really slow down Lane Kiffin. And in 2 games, the Ole Miss offense has looked terrific with Matt Corral, and they always have receivers there. That was kind of a leftover from the Hugh Freeze era. They've always been able to recruit talented players at receiver. And so I think this is both of these hires have the potential to work out. They're certainly very exciting hires with those offenses. And I'm curious to see how Alabama defends Ole Miss, because you saw at times even last week against Texas A&M that there were plays to be made, and one Alabama defender would kind of save the day, or A&M would screw up and not execute. So I think that there's going to be some. I know the weather's a big factor with Ole Miss, and maybe that changes everything. But I think there's going to be some opportunities for that talented Lane Kiffin offense to get after it against his old boss, Nick Saban. It's
definitely going to be fascinating. But I personally am a little confident that Moses and Patrick Surtain is the second will find a way to get things done, at least back there for Nick Saban's defense, right?
Yeah, no doubt. And I mean, they have some real. You mentioned Dylan Moses coming back from injury. His absence was a huge reason why Alabama defense struggled. They just didn't look like their typical selves last year as a group. And him being back is huge. Surtain is, I think, maybe the best individual cover corner in college football. And then Will Anderson is a guy that I know they're very excited about, a true freshman who's already starting and showing some impressive ability to get into the backfield in kind of an outside linebacker, defensive end role. So, I mean, there's obviously a lot of talent at Alabama, but, again, they have transitioned. I think it's fair to say at this point, they're not a team that wins games like Georgia does. Georgia wants to win every game 24-7. Alabama, in the last few years has been much more comfortable playing higher scoring games. And, I think unless the weather really changes this one, I would expect there to be plenty of points scored in Oxford.
He's Adam Rittenberg. Make sure you follow him on Twitter, ESPN Rittenberg. That's with 2 T's, ESPN Rittenberg on Twitter. Also check out his article on Texas and Texas A&M. A little pregame reading for tomorrow's Red River rivalry. I almost want to keep saying Red River shootout, but I gotta hold myself back, Adam.
We can't say that anymore.
Yeah, it's a shame. Adam Rittenberg, thank you again for joining us here on Game Night.
Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
And our college football conversation with Adam being brought to you by GMS Law. Make the right call with 4 convenient locations to serve you. Visit them online at gmslaw.com. Text board is open, 609-403-0973 to get on the conversation. That's theplaysugarhouse.com. Text board, 609-403-0973. 0973. Got a couple texts to get to on the other side, plus some college football thoughts and picks for the weekend for you as we lead you up to high school football tonight. Mike Gill, Steve Parker on the call. St. Joe versus Pleasantville at the top of the hour right here on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
I am Josh Hennig counting you down to St. Joe versus Pleasantville. High school football back in action tonight. Mike Gill, Steve Parker on the call right here on 97.3 ESPN. Following them will be Yankees-Rays Game 5 in progress. Winner go home tonight for the Yankees and Rays on 97.3 ESPN. Don't forget tomorrow, as we mentioned just a little bit ago here on 97.3 ESPN tomorrow morning, you got Sports Bash Best Of, 9 a.m. Billy Schwein in the locker room, 10 a.m. to noon. And then at noon, we got the Red River Rivalry, Oklahoma versus Texas. And then later that night, tomorrow night, 7:30 coverage begins for Miami versus Clemson, all here on 97.3 ESPN. We got you covered all weekend long. Of course, Eagles football on Sunday, Monday football on Monday, and we will have Tuesday night football. That's right, the Titans and the Bills here on 97.3 ESPN. 609-403-0973 for the PlaySugarHouse.com text board, 609-403-0973. Joey D. in Ventnor chimes in and says, Wentz and Peterson do need to be better on first down and move the chains. But Wentz will do better, and the Eagles will win 25-23. That's Joey D's prediction for the Eagles game on Sunday. You know, Joey D, a couple things there. One, Wentz and Peterson needing to do better are definitely true. But how they need to do better is a little different than each other. Wentz needs to do better as a decision maker, and Peterson needs to do better as a projector of a situation, because Wentz is having to make decisions in the moment. Peterson is making projections of what a situation will be when he calls a play. And I think that there are times this year that they're just not in sync at all with what their jobs are supposed to be. And so, to me, it's more than just first down. It's third down, too. There have been decisions made by Wentz on third down this year that just have not been smart. And there are other times he looks great. So he's got to be more consistent. The inconsistency is not good enough. And for Peterson, he's also got to put his team in a better position to be successful down in and down out, not just game to game. No, from down to down, he's got to do better. So there is something to be said for, yes, they both need to do better. I'm going to let the cat out of the bag right now. Told you I gave you my Eagles prediction for Sunday. No Sports Bash Saturday tomorrow. We'll have Texas, Oklahoma at noon here on 97.3 ESPN. I said it earlier this week, and I'm not changing my opinion until I see otherwise. I believed before the season this. I believed on Monday this was true, and I believe it today on Friday, October 9th. The Eagles will lose the next two games to the Steelers and the Ravens. I think the Steelers have a defense that is going to give the Eagles some trouble. I think that the Eagles don't have a strong enough offensive line right now to handle the blitzing of the Steelers consistently. I think Wentz will make some plays. I don't think it's beyond the idea that this is going to get some scoring. It's not going to be the Steelers just totally locking down the Eagles or anything like that. But I have to agree with Sal Palantonio for a Sal Pal Friday early on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. I think the Eagles cover. I think the Steelers win this game something like a 26-17 kind of game. I think the Eagles get some points, but not enough. And I think the Steelers, they're going to be good enough to win. And their defense is probably going to score one of their points, whether it's an interception or a forced fumble or something. Because they're an opportunistic defense. It's part of the reason why they've been successful. Guys like Minkah Fitzpatrick and others, they are great at forcing you to be the worst you can be in certain moments. So I think the Steelers are going to beat the Eagles. Something like a 26-17, maybe like a 24-17. I don't think the Steelers are going to get to 30 points in the game. I think they have to kick a few field goals to get to their win, but they're going to score some points. Ben Roethlisberger, that offense, they'll find a way. I think the Eagles' defense will slow them down for as long as they can, but eventually the Steelers will break out. So that's how I see the game going on Sunday. And I think that they lose to the Ravens as well. I think the Eagles can cover the 7. I really do. So maybe 24-17 is a little loud. Maybe 24-20 they lose. Maybe 20-16 they lose. Something along those lines. I don't think the Steelers are going to start out fast, and I think the Eagles defense will be able to hold them in check for a little bit. 609-403-0973 with the PlaySugarHouse.com. Text board Dan from EHT says, I have a bad feeling this Eagles game could be rock bottom game. Steelers coming off a bye with no injuries. Again, I don't know if it's a rock bottom game, Dan EHT, but I see a loss. I definitely see a loss. That's for sure. Game night tonight being brought to you by East Coast Roofing and Siding, serving all of South Jersey. If you call, they'll show up. Find them online at eastcoastroofing.com. All right, promised you the college picks. Went 6-2 last week. Winning week. Let's try to keep the winning going here. As we go through the year, we try to learn together. We try to figure out where we went right, where we went wrong, and try to move on from there. I mentioned the Red River rivalry tomorrow on 97.3 ESPN. Texas and Oklahoma, I'm saying go over 72.5. I know the number keeps moving, but both teams have poor defenses, allowing 30 points per game each in their last 2 games, while both teams' offenses are averaging over 500 total yards per game. I expect a shootout, maybe something like 45-40 kind of game tomorrow between Texas and Oklahoma. NC State at Virginia. I'm going NC State plus 7.5. Virginia's defense allowed 20 points versus Duke, then 41 to Clemson. And now they got an NC State team that's coming off of a huge win. Sophomore South Jersey native Devin Leary from Timber Creek coming off a huge victory over Pittsburgh. He had 336 passing yards and 4 touchdowns over a Pitt defense that I was told was supposed to be good. Remember I was told Pitt's defense was supposed to be good? Not so fast, my friend. Take the words out of Lee Corso's mouth. Virginia puts a 9-game home winning streak on the line tomorrow against NC State. NC State's biggest win since 2017. I think Devin Leary is going to stay hot. Give me the plus 7.5 for NC State. Florida and Texas A&M, I'm going the over 58.5. Florida has one of the best offenses in college football, averaging 44.5 points per game. But their defense also allows 471 yards per game. Kellen Mond had 3 passing touchdowns against a very talented Alabama defense. Give me the over 58.5 tomorrow. Duke at Syracuse plus 1.5. I have no idea why Syracuse is an underdog in this game. Duke is one of the worst teams in the ACC, and they're going on the road to Syracuse. Duke is 0-4. They've been outscored by a combined 59 points this year. Their quarterback has thrown 7 interceptions. Chase Bryce, I mean, come on, man. Syracuse plus 1.5. Real quick, the others here. I'm going over on the Texas Tech Iowa State game. Kansas State at TCU over 50.5. Temple at Navy. Navy's going to have people in attendance at the game tomorrow. Give me Navy plus 3.5. And then you're going to tell me Kentucky's going to stop Mississippi State? No, give me Mississippi State in the plus 3.